Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly video for an earnings-filled October 26th, 2021. We'll start right here with what's happening right now. At the time that I'm producing this video, it's just about 30 minutes after the market has closed, and we're seeing preliminary earnings outcomes. First up is Microsoft, because it is one of the biggest names reporting today, but Google's not that far behind it. So Microsoft is currently, what we'll show here is our earnings-based expected move logic, and other ways to get this. Some ways to get this would include taking a look, close up the option chains, and viewing what the current implied volatility is, and that currently is translating into the up or down price movement of about $8.74. Watch for that expected move to take place and the option and the price of the stock to trade within that bound. That could be a butterfly type trade or a trade that takes advantage going into tomorrow's session. If you are an intraday trader and not trading ahead of earnings, meaning watching the video tonight, you'll know what the earnings and the outcomes are. And there isn't time to get trades on before. So what you might want to do in the intraday frame, given these levels, given these prices, and take a look at where the price opens. So these are the expected move ranges, at least for the earnings on a option volatility basis. So whatever the earnings are, and there's way too many to cover in tonight's video, but when you're interested in looking at what the earnings were, what the expectation is for any particular stock in earnings, you can always go to the Analyze tab on the earnings box right here, and then pull down and look at exactly what the actual, when it reports, when it comes up into the data, and what the Wall Street consensus was. You also can look at news items or news event, live news, and for example, looking at Microsoft, you can tell exactly what the earnings were. So that is the play, that is the call, that is the opportunity in what's taking place, and of course that can be linked through this. I linked mine with a red opportunity call right there. So what the news events are, what's taking place, what earnings are after the bell, and that can be done not just in Microsoft, but any other stock you're looking at. So currently, after the bell, Microsoft shares are traded up to a high of $3.16.50. That's about right here. We'll be watching these levels in the morning session and seeing a play up to here, which could be a short type of intraday opportunity to play down away from. And in the event we do see this 302 bottom of the expected range, if this does take a tumble after hours, that might be both a target and a spot to play bullishly to reverse intraday tomorrow up off of. That's the general logic. The price would stay more than not, or at least a probability of more than not, between those two bounds. Texas Instruments, similar logic, but it is seeing a range expansion. It's seeing a down move. And this is why we are looking at these components and these information pieces here. So for Texas Instruments, this is a stock that has the close about 197, and that auto-generated expected move is roughly 186 on the downside and about 207 on the upside. Where are we trading currently? 186. And this is done before the bell. This is your option logic, same type of information for different types of straddle logic. So currently, we can look at that as in 196. That was a price at least earlier. Now you're seeing the stock trade lower. But these are things to be done before the bell and before any particular earnings. So Texas Instruments, as of this video, is seeing a plunge, or at least a fall, after earnings down to about 186. And again, that is the target level. So that is something to watch for any particular bounce bullish movement off of that, and that can be done intraday on Wednesday session. Nevertheless, with butterfly trades, that play down to here is the downside move. We see Google, and I'll let this be for tomorrow's session, but Google, in terms of its movement and its volatility, does have at the moment, this can change quickly, think about Tesla and Facebook, a downside play directly after the earnings. Capital One Financial, not much of a move. 106 or 166 is where it is currently, and that play in the volatility is roughly about 12 up and down to about 176 or 152. And we have Visa. That's the final one we'll take a look at. And Visa has its move a little bit more tight, a little bit more contracted, and we're seeing that play just a little bit up off of its closing price. So that is earnings. That's today's session. We got them covered. Tomorrow, use the same logic for General Motors, also Coca-Cola. There's the pricing. Bristol Myers Squibb, Boeing, which can be a Dow mover, Kraft, or has been a Dow mover, Kraft, and McDonald's, General Dynamics, and Thermo Fisher Scientific. Those will be opening before the opening bell on Wednesday's session. But after the close, we have Ford. Now, we won't go through every single stock here, but it is in the upcoming earnings, and you can always get this from the Analyze tab or the Market Watch tab, the calendar, and you can see exactly which earnings are coming up, which days in the future. So that's one way to look at the earnings yet to come in the stocks, or if you have any particular events, such as, there they go, such as Fed days or other information about pre-market or midday economic reports. Those would come here. So coming up, Caterpillar, Starbucks, Apple, Amazon. Looking at Apple and Amazon, we've had all these prior stocks. We're having Microsoft, we're having big market cap names report earnings. That is going to push markets in different directions, depending if they all report the same way and they all move in the same direction. That's a tall order to ask, but usually they'll see divisions. So some will go up, some will go down. Some could be violent and volatile, big gaps. Think what we just saw in Tesla and its movement just recently as it played up after its earnings play. Now that doesn't count because we're not playing earnings with this indicator, but Tesla had its earnings over here, and then from that point, not too long ago, that was $865 per share and has been caught up in a bullish breakout, new highs, and a squeeze beyond 1,000 per share. So earnings can be catalyst to move a stock very quickly and very rapidly in one direction. That's why spreads, risk-controlled opportunities, butterflies, all other things that play risk-controlled variables, that's a better strategy to play into earnings because the risk is high for some type of directional move. And it was not long ago that we did see that move, not to the upside, but down right here, the last, before this week, the last earnings report in Amazon. And the outcome, despite being bullish, despite being better than expected, was a 3 sigma significant move to the downside. So earnings are high risk, but when you play risk control with spreads, verticals, or butterfly type opportunities, that's how to mitigate risk or play into the intraday frame with the reaction after the earnings, as opposed to playing a directional guess or bet with shares or long calls or long puts directly ahead of earnings. In stocks making new highs, a quick note before we conclude the video and turn back to more earnings in this week's reports. Stocks that made new 52-week highs would include Microsoft, Tesla, which also just for news sake passed $1 trillion in market cap, then Nvidia, United Healthcare, Bank of America, Home Depot, Netflix, Salesforce.com, and some of the others. These strong stocks getting stronger, continue to make new highs, continue the uptrend, and that's playing into strong stocks getting stronger. A quick way to quantify or see those are scans each day or each evening for which stocks are outperforming the market and making higher highs, especially in strong uptrends. The S&P is making higher highs, but the Nasdaq is just a little bit. We'll get that indicator off so we can see it clearly. It's just a little bit behind that pace of the S&P, splitting at hairs, but nonetheless, the Nasdaq is not quite at that all-time high. But the Dow Mini Futures did break, and the Russell, which is back into the top of its sideways trading range. Bullish, yes. Earnings, yes. But not everything is bullish, not everything is breaking out, and not everything is making new 52-week highs. Always look beneath the market, look for risk, guard the risk, always be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosenblum with tonight's earnings-packed TheoTrade video update for October 26th, 2021.